Welcome to Jesus Christ Prison Ministry and another video Bible study. Our topic, Deuteronomy chapter 33. This is the blessing that Moses, the man of God, pronounced on the Israelites before his death. He said, "The Lord came from Sinai and dawned over them from Seir. He shone forth from Mount Paran. He came with myriads of holy ones from the south, from his mountain slopes. Surely it is you who love the people. All the holy ones are in your hand." Important point there. It is all the holy ones who are in his hand. The wicked are not in the hands of God. They're in the hands of Lucifer. Nothing can take the holy ones out of God's hand. Nothing. Except themselves. Like the prodigal son, they can jump off the hands of God and run away. God cannot force anyone to stay in his hand. It's voluntary. And the only way we can stay in his hand or under the shadow of the Almighty is to live as he commands us, perfect, sinless, and righteous. At your feet they all bow down, and from you receive instruction, the law that Moses gave, the possession of the assembly of Jacob. Holy ones bow down at the feet of God, and they listen to his instruction. And what is that instruction? That's the law, the 10 Commandments. He was king over Jeshurun when the leaders of the people assembled, along with the tribes of Israel. Let Reuben live and not die, nor his men be few. And this he said about Judah. Hear, O Lord, the cry of Judah. Bring him to his people. With his own hands he defends his cause. Oh, be his help against his foes. About Levi he said, your Thummim and Urim belong to the man you favored. You tested him at Massah. Keep in mind, God does not tempt, but God does test. There is a difference. He tests us to see if we will remain loyal to him, but he will never tempt us. It is the devil who is the tempter to sin. God cannot tempt us to sin because there's no sin in God, but he will test us to see if we remain sinless, perfect, and holy before him. He said of his father and mother, I have no regard for them. He did not recognize his brothers or acknowledge his own children. But he watched over your word and guarded your covenant. He teaches your precepts to Jacob and your law to Israel. Too many so-called Christians today have more regard for their family than they do for the law of God. Levi, even though he honored his family, his parents, loved them dearly, he had more regard for the law of God. And when his family members and when others sinned, they stood up for God's law. They guarded his covenant. They watched over his word and in their lives continued to live the perfect life. This is talking about the time at the rebellion at the foot of Mount Sinai when Moses was up in the mountains getting the 10 Commandments. The people rebelled against the 10 Commandments. They said that they would keep holy, and they made a calf. When Moses came down and saw the sin, he said, who is on God's side? And the Levites rose up to join Moses in putting to death those that gave themselves to rebellion. He offers incense before you and whole burnt offerings on your altar. Bless all his skills, O Lord, and be pleased with the work of his hands. Smite the loins of those who rise up against him. Strike his foes till they rise no more. God will strike his foes. Which are your foes if you are living the perfect, righteous, sinless, commandment-keeping life? we are safe in the hands of God if we are obedient to him. About Benjamin, he said, "Let the beloved of the Lord rest securely in him, for he shields him all day long. And the one the Lord loves rests between his shoulders." About Joseph, he said, "May the Lord bless his land with the precious dew from heaven above, and with the deep waters that lie below. With the best the sun brings forth, and the finest the moon can yield. With the choicest gifts of the ancient mountains, and the fruitfulness of the everlasting hills. With the best gifts of the earth and its fullness, and the favor of him who dwelt in the burning bush. Let all these rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers. In majesty, he is like a firstborn bull. His horns are the horns of a wild ox. With them he will gore the nations, even those at the ends of the earth. Such are the 10,000s of Ephraim, such are the thousands of Manasseh." That's a long blessing for Joseph's clan. But Joseph, even though he was treated badly by his brothers, sold off to slavery, put in prison, he held firm to God and his commandments. He did not break them. And God rewarded him. And through that rewarding of him to become prime minister of Egypt, he saved all of Egypt, who then turned against him. Folks, we need to stay firm to God no matter what. About Zebulun, he said, "Rejoice, Zebulun, in your going out, and you, Issachar, in your tents. They will summon peoples to the mountain, and there offer sacrifices of righteousness. They will feast on the abundance of the seas, on the treasures hidden in the sand." Do you want to feast on the abundance of the seas and on the treasures hidden in the sand? Then summon people to the Lord Jesus Christ. Summon them to the 10 Commandments. Watch God bless you. You may use our Bible studies and our videos. They're free of charge. Get to know them, share them, pass them around, and watch God bless your life. About Gad, he said, "Blessed is he who enlarges Gad's domain. Gad lives there like a lion, tearing at arm or head." He chose the best land for himself. The leader's portion was kept for him. When the heads of the people assembled, he carried out the Lord's righteous will and his judgments concerning Israel. Are you carrying out the righteous will of God? Are you obeying the 10 Commandments in your life? About Dan, he said, "Dan is a lion's cub springing out of Bashan." About Naphtali, he said, "Naphtali is abounding with the favor of the Lord and is full of his blessing. He will inherit southward to the lake." About Asher, he said, "Most blessed of sons is Asher. Let him be favored by his brothers, and let him bathe his feet in oil. The bolts of your gates will be iron and bronze, and your strength will equal your days." There is no one like the God of Jeshurun, who rides on the heavens to help you, and on the clouds in his majesty. Do you want the help of God? Live obediently to him. You will be under his protection, and he will bless you. The eternal God is your refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He will drive out your enemies before you, saying, "Destroy them." So Israel will live in safety alone. Jacob's spring is secure in a land of grain and new wine, where the heavens drop dew. Blessed are you, O Israel. Who is like you, a people saved by the Lord? He is your shield and helper and your glorious sword. Your enemies will cower before you, and you will trample down their high places. God wanted to bless the Israelites. He did. He kept his promise. While they were obedient to him, he expanded their land and their territory and blessed them above all nations of the world. And then they got prideful, arrogant, haughty. They left the hand of God. They jumped down into the mire of the world and wanted to be like the world. And so, even though God saved them, brought them out of Egypt, blessed them, they chose not to remain obedient to God. Therefore, they lost those blessings and were eventually, eternally lost as a nation. As a people, individually, they can still have salvation if each one accepts Jesus Christ as the sacrifice and the Passover lamb. It's the same with each of us. We have a choice. We can live as we are commanded by God and keep the 10 Commandments, living perfectly, sinlessly. Or we can be like the world, fill our hearts with the world and the idols of the world and be destroyed. The choice is yours. God holds out his arms, his hands, and he says, come, be protected, be blessed. Just be obedient to me. I pray that you will come. Join the righteous who will sing hallelujahs to God and spend eternity in heaven. Thank you for being with me and Jesus Christ for another video Bible study.